Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, and it's my honor to call to order the 2022 State of the City. These essential events would never be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. Please help us thank our presenting sponsors: St. John's Health Center, Santa Monica Travel and Tourism, UCLA Health, Optimum Sizing, Boston Properties, GoodRx, and Video. Thank you to all of our sponsors who you see listed on the slide presentation. I would like to acknowledge Mayor Sue Himmelrich, City Manager David White, and members of the City Council, Lana Negrete, Phil Brock, and Gleam Davis. I would also like to welcome some of our former council members: Greg Marina, Ted Winter, Judy Abdo, Kevin McEwen, and Pam O'Connor. We also have city staff, commissioners, chamber board members, and representatives from our county, state, and federal elected officials here with us today. Among them, Chief Ramon Bautista, Aurelia Friedman from Congressman Ted Lieu's office, Sam Lieu and Rod Nauwertz from Senator Ben Allen's office. We deeply appreciate the support and partnership of all our community leaders.
So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 12th Annual State of the City. This year's theme is Envisioning Our Future. I think, like many of you, I'm ready to close the door on the past 2 years and look ahead to a new future filled with hope. However, I have been reflecting on the many years of service to the Santa Monica community as your Chamber CEO. My last day at the Chamber is March 18th, and then I will be on a new chapter in my life. So as I reviewed the many pictures and memories I gathered over the last 24 years, I came to realize that despite the challenges we've all faced and will continue to face here in our beloved community, Santa Monica City and its people are special, like no other city. There's a passion here, and almost a fierce passion, that may sometimes create conflict between the varying groups who feel ownership of the city, but that also creates a sense of community pride and dedication that I've never seen anywhere else. And because of this, Santa Monica will always rise and succeed. I want to thank my staff who have hung in there for the last 2 years. And thank you to Michael Ricks and our Chamber Board and all of the many people who have helped the Chamber to stay strong and relevant. So we're pleased that so many businesses, community leaders, city officials, and residents could be with us this evening. Tonight, we bring together thought leaders in city government and the private sector who are actively working on finding solutions to our most pressing problems. We're very grateful to have our Mayor, Sue Himmelrich, with us, and Santa Monica City Manager, David White. They both join us tonight to share their insights of who we are as a city today and what we can accomplish moving forward together. Our keynote speaker, futurist inventor, Pablos Holman, brings a wealth of experience to share with us, and you'll hear much more about him shortly. So the mission of the Chamber is to be a convener, the nexus point between businesses and city government, as well as the whole community. And the events like this are crucial for us to help change, to make it be a catalyst for change. And we've seen that more than ever in the last 2 years of how important it is to bring the resources and the connections to people that really need us. And so we've been very proud to play that role in our community. So given fast-moving changes, there's an urgency to be agile and collectively create a new vision for our city and learn how to prepare for a changing landscape that brings with it great challenges in how we live and work, but also great opportunities. Our speakers tonight will discuss how we can collaborate to build trust and create public-private partnerships, building in the accountability to create a positive change for our city. The Chamber has always been engaged in helping our city find solutions for our biggest issues, and this year's discussion is no exception. We've all faced many challenges. We are at the ready to continue to find ways to balance the needs of our business community and residents to ensure we have a prosperous and sustainable Santa Monica. So on behalf of myself and our board and all the people that are members of our chamber, I hope you will join us to work together to envision a bright future for the city we all love. And I'm very honored and blessed to have been part of this city and this community building this future for this many years. And I look forward to continuing watching our great city as it moves forward and recovers and becomes great once again. It is great now. So I think we're all in for an exciting night. And at this time, I'd like you to help me please welcome to the stage, to the virtual podium, our chamber chair, Michael Ricks. Michael, podium is yours.
Thank you, Laurel. Appreciate that. It's my honor to introduce to all of you this evening, Mayor Sue Himmelrich. As most of you know, Sue is a 22-year resident of Santa Monica and was appointed to the Planning Commission in 2013 and subsequently the City Council in 2014. Sue, amongst many things, has helped anchor the slow growth side of the commission and the council and has been a very strong voice for Santa Monica's values while on both the Planning Commission and the City Council, with an exceptional focus on preserving our existing neighborhoods, opposing projects that bring excess traffic or ultra luxury development to our diverse community, preserving renters' rights and the production of affordable housing, enhancing strong environmental programs, and championing a living wage for hotel workers and others. Sue's a graduate of Harvard College and Columbia Law School and lives in Santa Monica with her husband, Michael Soloff, and their two daughters, Hillary and Molly. So please join me in welcoming our mayor, Sue Himmelrich, to the podium. Thank you, Sue.
Thanks very much, Michael. And thanks to all of you who are here today. I'm so happy to be here, even though we once again are virtual. I pray that sometime before my term expires, I will have an opportunity to see all of you in person, and thank you for your support and your love for our city. Last year at State of the City, I spoke of the common good, a concept defined as the good of all of the community. That is a simple definition, but it is an important concept when applied to government. As Aristotle explained long ago, even if the end is the same for a single man and for a state, although it is worthwhile to attain the end merely for one man, it is finer and more godlike to attain it for a nation or for city-states. We should not be so naive as to believe that this is the mantra of most aspiring politicians in 2022. But I believe that our leaders should believe in working for the advantage of all of their constituents, not just for their own ego or for their own special interests. Last year, I also spoke at length about my hopes for 2021, and we realized so many of them. Let me start with our new leadership. The foundation for everything else we do is the quality of our professional leadership team and city staff. We admittedly have had a great deal of turnover in the last 2 years, but also have made great strides towards putting in place new and excellent replacements. In June, City Council appointed Lana Negretti to fill the seat vacated by Kevin McEwen. Councilmember Negretti is a lifelong resident who brings a wealth of knowledge about the issues impacting youth and families, renters, and small business owners, and it has been a pleasure working with her towards Santa Monica's future in these last few months. City Council selected David White to serve as Santa Monica's city manager, and I'm thrilled we found somebody so aligned with our community values. David has a keen understanding of the central issues cities like ours face, and has demonstrated that he has the experience and spirit of can-do inclusion we need to lead Santa Monica at this critical time. I also want to give a warm welcome and congratulations to all of the new leadership in our city. Assistant City Manager Susan Klein, Police Chief Ramon Bautista, Public Works Director Rick Valti, and I look forward to Santa Monica Fire Chief Danny Alvarez joining the city at the end of February. The past several years have been historically challenging for so many reasons, and I'd like to express my genuine thanks to all our city staff for their dedication to public service. On behalf of the City Council, I want to say we support you and value your contributions, and we value your sacrifices throughout the pandemic. I personally thank you. We have made serious inroads in our work to elevate equity and inclusion in Santa Monica. We are deeply committed to erasing the footprints of systemic and institutional racism. We also embrace our differences and celebrate the rich cultures that make up our community. In this vein, Council appropriated $100,000 of its discretionary funds to support the establishment of the Santa Monica Black Lives Association, a community-based organization focused on addressing the health, wellness, mental health, and socioeconomic needs of the Black community in Santa Monica. February is Black History Month, and I want to give a special thanks to the amazing work of Delana Benacama, our city's equity coordinator, for her ongoing leadership to create educational, fun, and community building events that spotlight the wonderful contributions of our Black community. There are many events in the coming weeks, so I hope you can attend as many as possible. City Council prioritized equity and inclusion by approving the development of a racial equity committee with an equity inclusion officer representative from every department. These volunteer EIOs define 6 areas to advance social equity: developing an informal mentoring program, creating equity standards for the city's hiring process, developing implicit bias training for city staff, developing standards for performance evaluations, a racial equity toolkit, and outlining an equity plan for the city. As part of our mid-year budget, the City Council also approved an equity manager to help drive this work forward. Affordable housing is also a place where we are working to make our commitment to equity real. The council adopted a pilot preference in our affordable housing program for 100 families displaced by the Civic Center project and 10 Freeway to return to the city. And we have made affirmative efforts to reach out. While this is really just a first step, it is a tangible sign of the committee's commitment to more meaningful steps. As you know, we continue to grapple with the regional homelessness crisis. Homelessness and the impacts of homelessness are probably the hardest issues facing our state, our county, and our city of Santa Monica. Our council and our city is committed to doing everything in our ability to prevent housed Santa Monicans from becoming homeless, addressing behavioral health needs of our vulnerable residents, advocating for regional capacity to address homelessness, and maintaining safe access to our public spaces. Tonight, City Manager White will talk in more detail about the work the city is conducting in this important area. One innovative new program you might be interested in includes a therapeutic transport ban staffed with behavioral health professionals and people with lived experience who offer supportive resources for non-violent mental health related calls for service. This resource will be available in the spring. And while this is a service open to the entire community, I know it will make an impact on those experiencing homelessness and suffering from mental health trauma who live on our streets. We must ensure that we are using the most effective approaches to address homelessness. So just last month, City Council voted to amend our internal audit plan to include a review of Santa Monica's homeless services delivery. We will take a close look at the city's homeless services planning strategy and communications, including comparison to best practices. We also will examine the roles of the city and the local, regional, and state agencies that work to address homelessness. This data will help us to assess our best deployment of the various city resources and organizational structure dedicated to addressing homelessness. We have continued our commitment to affordable housing. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected all of us in different ways, but for those who lost their jobs and were unable to pay rent, the last 2 years have been very scary. We thank Governor Newsom for signing SB 91 and establishing the COVID-19 rent relief program. To help Santa Monica's renters, City Council directed staff to make every effort to encourage eligible Santa Monica residents and landlords to apply for this program. And it worked. Through a collaborative outreach effort, including rent control, the city attorney's office, and the city manager's team, over $46 million in rental assistance has been requested by over 2,600 households, and over $25 million has been paid in rent relief to Santa Monica households so far. We are also moving forward to create new affordable housing. The council voted to proceed with turning the city-owned parcel at 1318 4th Street into an affordable housing project, and we have selected a development team. Working with Congressman Ted Lieu, the city also obtained a $2 million federal earmark to cover the costs of demolition and site preparation. We want to thank Congressman Lieu for his advocacy and leadership on behalf of Santa Monica. And although a lawsuit is delaying this project, the city is doing everything possible to move forward. We know that one project alone is not enough to meet our needs. The city has designated its public land for development into 100% affordable housing over the next 8 years. Of course, to make this a reality, we will need financial assistance from the state, and we continue to press the state to put its money where its mouth is on this affordable housing issue. But now let me turn to Santa Monica's extraordinary pandemic response. Next month marks 2 years since our lives were upended by COVID-19. While we work to find a new normal and live with this deadly disease, the City of Santa Monica's Emergency Operations Center remains activated to respond to the COVID-19 emergency. The Emergency Operations Center team has worked to vaccinate the community and staff, provide protective equipment to our businesses, share information about the latest public health orders, and provide resources to support the city's economic recovery. Above all, we prioritize your health, and it's been a long, hard year. I'm proud to report that over 90% of the Santa Monica community is vaccinated, and personally want to thank our Emergency Operations Director and Chief Resiliency Officer, Lindsay Call, for her dedication and service to the community during such an unprecedented health emergency. Of course, we continue to work on an equitable economic recovery. 2021 was filled with ups and downs, with struggles with the supply of vaccines, testing, and PPE, aggravated by the arrival of new COVID variants. We all should be proud that even with uncertainty, our economy continued to improve, and there are signs of economic recovery all around us. With decision like council's approval to continue temporary outdoor use permits, small business grants, and our Art of Recovery program, I believe we have made the right policy decision to ensure a bright decision for Santa Monica. You may not know that our unemployment rate is down to 5.8% from its height of 15%. In fact, while we'd like to drive that down even further, we now face the additional problem of helping our local businesses hire workers. So to accomplish both things, we created the Hire Local Jobs Board, which has elevated over 360 local jobs from 72 different Santa Monica businesses. We know hiring has been a challenge this year, so if you need to hire or if you're looking for a job, go to santamonica.gov/hire local. Would love to help make that match between our businesses and individuals looking for work. Speaking of creating jobs, the Virginia Avenue Park Commercial Kitchen is also moving forward, which will provide a new space for businesses looking for commercial space. $640,000 in funding has been secured from public and private sources this year, and we're excited to share more about this program in 2022. Of course, we all hoped we would be together by this state of the city, that City Hall would be fully open, that we could meet and chat about the issues of the day in person, that we'd be done with our masks, with our vaccines, and most of all, that we would no longer wake every morning to the COVID-19 death and hospitalization counts. We aren't quite there yet, but as you will hear from City Manager White, we are moving in the right direction. I would be remiss if I did not speak about the elephant in every room, and that is the aggressive hostility we witness every day on television, on our streets, in our schools, and in our government chambers. Take this, for example. The first clip you see is from January 11th, when we considered mandatory vaccination policy similar to the city of Los Angeles. These protesters came to my door and demanded of my husband that I leave a city council meeting to speak to them because they were more important.
Just, we would like to talk to her.
Well, you can call into the city council meeting.
Sorry, we have to have a direct discussion with her. This is way more serious than some Zoom meeting. Please, can we talk to her?
We have 21,000 deaths that are already reported on theirs. We have 1 million.
She's in the city council meeting. Do you understand what that means?
Yes, exactly. And this is extremely important.
Okay.
Citizens,
we don't want
need
her
to talk
to
to
pass
her.
a vote because there's too many people dying.
Please.
Hundreds of thousands of people are
Excuse me,
dead.
let her know if she passed this fascism, we will be here every night.
Hundreds of thousands of people are dead. They're killing children, sir.
She's participating in massacring American people.
This is genocide. It's genocide. Nuremberg Code.
So the second clip you're going to see.
This is massive genocide.
The second clip you'll see is the same night as I remain in the meeting. And these folks march outside my house calling me Mayor Himmler and citing to Nuremberg. They demand I come out.
The only customers left in Santa Monica are homeless. You managed the city into the ground. You're a huge failure.
No vax passport.
No vax passport. No vax passport. No vax passport. Enough's enough, sir. This is global genocide. You are part of the genocide. Stop watching CNN. No.
So if you did not pay attention to the Pope's State of the World address last month, it may surprise you to hear that he spoke only 2 words in English during his speech: cancel culture. And before I proceed, let me give my sincere gratitude to Monsignor Torgerson, who helped me understand the Pope's vision, which is not so unlike mine, though I'm a Jewish woman from Baltimore. The words cancel culture mean different things to different people, but the baseline definition per dictionary.com is the phenomenon or practice of publicly rejecting, boycotting, or ending support for particular people or groups because of their socially or morally unacceptable views or actions. In fact, I have a perfect visual example of this phenomenon. I first saw this sign when I returned from visiting my 90-year-old mother. It is Xing me out because I support an affordable housing project to report parking structure number 3. And now we have a second slide. This is a fake mock-up of my face on a big blue bus, and as intended to portray me as an opponent of affordable housing, and indeed any housing. This despite the fact that I was a sponsor of measures GS and GSH that raise money for affordable housing in Santa Monica. So whether it's vaccines or parking structures, cancel culture aims at canceling opposing voices, or even different voices like mine, by canceling the person, not the message. What is most disturbing about cancel culture, as the Pope said in his address, is its tenuous relationship to facts, to what is true and what is false. And it is our responsibility as individuals, as parents, as children, as friends, as colleagues, as people, to stand up against the attempt to cancel other people, other ideas, and to counter this with facts and with the truth. Cancel culture flies in the face of working toward the common good, both politically and personally, because it forces us into echo chambers where we hear only those who agree with us. And we know that cancel culture has a deterrent effect on political discourse and leadership. I ran for office in 2014 on a platform mostly realized: affordable housing, transparency in government, an audit committee, registering lobbyists, and breaking up the insider game in City Hall. Yet when I ran in 2014, my opponents raised $275,000 to defeat me. But they were not content to support my main opponent. No, they also published ugly hit pieces and made false robocalls. This is just one page of several flyers my opposition mailed to Santa Monica voters in 2014. It attacks not just me, but my husband, describing us as liars, cheaters, and greedy anti-environmentalists. Their campaign failed, but this personal attack approach to politics deters many whose goal it is to promote the common good from choosing to run for office and from subjecting themselves to this kind of abuse. Ultimately, the power to change our political discourse and to strengthen our city lies with our community members themselves and with the voters. So let me repeat what I've said for 8 years and will continue to repeat. Talk is cheap. I encourage you to look behind the words of the folks who seek your vote this year and look carefully at what they have done and how they have voted, particularly the hard votes. I hope that you, like I, will look through the cheap promises and slick literature at your candidates' life accomplishments and at their specific votes. So, what's ahead? We need you, all of you, to work with us towards a common good. I look forward to continuing my efforts to stabilize the city for the next 9 months as mayor with a responsive and permanent leadership team. And I hope to support our residents and businesses with smart local measures to restore our economy and our matchless image as the most creative, artistic, sustainable, and caring city in California. I hope you will join me in this quest to turn this corner and put this pandemic behind us. So if you do want to join me, the City Council, our new leadership team, and our staff in these many efforts and in our quest for the common good, please get involved. We want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. You can write me at Sue Himmelrich, sue.himmelrich@santamonica.gov, or call me on my cell phone, 310-963-1337. All ideas are welcome, and I look forward to seeing all of you in person before I leave office. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mayor Himmelrich, for that informative presentation and your unique perspective on the challenges facing local government, actually all levels of government today. Hello, my name is Tom Robinson, and I'm here tonight representing Optimum Seismic, presenting sponsor of this State of the City program. Optimum Seismic has been working in Santa Monica to make it safer from earthquakes for more than 20 years. As a retired city manager who's worked in 4 cities over more than a 40-year career, it gives me special pleasure to introduce Santa Monica City Manager David White. And as I'm doing this from my home office, outside I have thunder, I have lightning, and I have hail. And I think that's all because of David White. David White is the Santa Monica City Manager. He is the organization's chief executive. He oversees a total city budget of more than $700 million and a workforce of more than 1,900 employees. He is responsible for the effective operation of 12 city departments and for implementing city council policies and priorities. He joined the city of Santa Monica in October 2021 after serving as deputy city manager in Berkeley, where he championed reimagining public safety, including a model of civilian oversight of Berkeley's police department. Before his time in Berkeley, he was the city manager of Fairfield, California. And with his extensive background in finance, both as an investment banker and as Fairfield's finance director, he is well suited to see Santa Monica through its economic recovery. A resident of Santa Monica and a Los Angeles native, White graduated from UCLA with a bachelor's degree in psychology and anthropology. He holds a master's degree in city planning from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Please welcome David White.
Good evening, Santa Monica, and thank you, Tom, very much for the very warm introduction, and it was nice to get to meet you earlier this evening. I am so very excited to be here tonight, sharing my first State of the City address with all of you. Before I get started, I'd like to take a quick moment to acknowledge the city's partnership with the Chamber of Commerce in hosting tonight's event. For many years, the city and Chamber have brought forward a State of the City event with the goal of keeping our community engaged and informed on how our local government is faring, providing a networking opportunity, highlighting our accomplishments and challenges, and outlining our vision for the future. Tonight is extra special, not just because it's my first State of the City as your city manager, but because it's Laurel Rosen's last as president of our Chamber of Commerce. And this is a chance for me to publicly acknowledge Laurel. I haven't had the pleasure of getting to know Laurel as well as many of you, but I learned very quickly that her work during her many years leading our business community has helped make Santa Monica what it is today. I've heard over and over again about her passion for our business community, and more importantly, her heartfelt approach to her work. Thank you, Laurel, for your work in Santa Monica and the strong legacy you're leaving, and for all the wonderful contributions you've made to our beautiful city. Thank you. My first impressions of Santa Monica are the same as most. Santa Monica is a beautiful, sophisticated city with dynamic business districts, quiet neighborhoods, and diverse perspectives. I run and I bike throughout the city nearly every day, so I get to see Santa Monica by foot and from the seat of my bike. And here's what I see. We have a beautiful bay and beach. Our wooden pier with an amusement park is unlike any other in the world. There are great shops and restaurants around nearly every corner of our city. It's well known at this point that I'm a vegan. I could not live in a better place than this. There are gems all over town, and I know that there are more on the way. But mostly, what I also see is the strong, engaged community and the commitment of the people who live and work here. Tonight's theme is envisioning the future, which I will get to in a bit. Before we look ahead, it's important to acknowledge the foundation from which our future will be built. Our financial position is an important factor in the state of our city. Santa Monica is in the initial phase of economic recovery, but let me be clear, we still have a lot of uncertainty ahead of us. In 2019, we projected a loss of revenues in our general fund of about $220 million over 3 years. Due to sound financial planning and tough decisions on restructuring our services, our finance director, Gigi DeCavallis-Hughes, just provided our council with an updated financial forecast that reflects our revenue loss to be closer to $188 million. This is still devastating, but it is nice to see improvement. Sales tax, parking revenue, hotel bed taxes, and documentary transfer taxes are projected to perform better than anticipated. And fiscal year 2021 to 2022 general fund revenues are projected to be 30.7 million higher than budgeted. However, many of our revenues continue to underperform in comparison to the levels attained before the pandemic. This has a very real impact on how we deliver services. Last week, Council adopted our mid-year budget. They approved modest and sustainable service restorations, adding back 24.8 full-time equivalent general fund positions. These additions allow us to strengthen our administrative capacity to deliver citywide services, provide some service enhancements, and deepen our commitment to building a Santa Monica for all. Council also allocated $11 million of unassigned revenue to replenish our general fund reserves. Reserves are so important in times of crisis, and we had to heavily rely on these resources early in the pandemic to maintain our operations. Important to note, even with this allocation, the city's reserves that are available to protect the city from financial shocks and can assist with community priorities are 59% less than what they were immediately prior to the pandemic. Our capital infrastructure and maintenance program took a hard hit, and it will take time to build the program back. Prior to the downturn in the economy, our city set aside $21 million a year to fund preventative maintenance in our infrastructure, equipment replacement, new technology, and park and mobility improvements. These funds also allowed us to leverage other funding sources to complete projects. The restructuring required us to cut our capital program budget by more than 50%. And even with some increases, our capital program remains severely underfunded and infrastructure needs remain deferred. While it has been painful, thanks to all of the actions taken by the City Council over the past couple of years, the city continues to receive the highest credit rating, AAA. The COVID-19 pandemic required a painful restructuring of our city teams. This has had a deep impact on how we can deliver services. We are slowly, strategically, and thoughtfully restoring services as funding becomes available. My goal is to support our workforce to meet Council's expectation to provide the highest level of service to our community. Yet, restoring services back to the levels that meet our community's expectations will take time. The public sector is facing many of the same challenges as most business sectors. We are grappling with staffing shortages and service disruptions due to COVID. We are struggling to fill vacancies, which is exacerbated by the city's high cost of living. This slide shows just some of the programs and services that are operating at reduced levels or that have been closed or suspended. Miles Playhouse has been closed, and there is no support from staff for permitted park events. Graffiti removal, alley paving, and sports field maintenance are operating at reduced frequencies. And in-person plan check and planning permit services are at 70% of previous levels, and by appointment only, while code enforcement cases are experiencing delays. Despite all this, in addition to all of the challenges that they have experienced over the past couple of years, it is obvious and impressive to me that your public employees remain focused, steadfast, and are committed to providing tremendous service to the community. As we approach the third year since the COVID-19 pandemic began, Santa Monica remains committed to keeping our community and city staff safe, and our Emergency Operations Center continues to lead our emergency response efforts. This includes access to local vaccine resources. Our Emergency Operations Center hosted 10 public COVID-19 vaccination clinics, helping contribute to over 72,800 Santa Monica residents and almost 1,800 city staff receiving their COVID-19 vaccine in 2021. As cases increased with the Delta and Omicron variants, the team identified the community's need for access to COVID-19 testing and launched the Clover Park testing site in partnership with the county. They also continued to adapt city operations to protect staff and the public by distributing personal protective equipment to help minimize COVID-19 transmission. The city issued 10 emergency orders in 2021 and regularly communicated LA County and city changes to residents and businesses via local media, emergency alerts, community newsletters, and social media. The restructuring of our city services had a noticeable impact on our ability to provide cleaning services in our public spaces. I know how important a clean Santa Monica is to our community, and I want you to know that I share your conviction. The dedicated team in our Public Works Department have reported to work each day and continue to do their all to deliver on this important priority. During the restructuring, we took hits in areas like graffiti removal, paint maintenance, custodial, and our trade shops. While this impacted service delivery response times, our crews have been working tirelessly to maintain our beaches, parks, and public facilities. I'm so pleased to have named Rick Valti to be our Public Works Director, and I'm confident his leadership will provide the support his team needs to continue to keep our community clean. This summer, we welcome Chief Ramon Bautista to Santa Monica. His leadership provides stability and focus to keep our community safe. During his time with the Santa Monica Police Department, Chief Bautista has been working in collaboration with our city partners to build trust and legitimacy and finding long-lasting solutions to our city's pressing issues. Looking at the statistics, our dedicated police officers responded to 101,040 calls for service, compared to 97,536 calls in 2020, a 3.5% increase. And there was a 2.9% reduction in Part 1 crimes. One of the things that sets our police department apart is how they prioritize engaging with our community and building strong relationships. And what impresses me every day is their ability to skillfully address uncertain and potentially life-threatening situations with an equal commitment to valuing human life and justice. In 2021, our Santa Monica Fire Department continued to deliver tremendous service. The department responded to 16,695 calls for service and supported vaccination rollout, with a high priority on vulnerable households. The department also experienced an increase in fire-related calls, and through their quick response, kept 90% of fires from spreading and saved $83.6 million in property value. As we prepare to welcome Santa Monica's next fire chief, Danny Alvarez, to the city leadership team at the end of this month, I want to express my gratitude for Chief Kanabe's leadership during this period of transition. Chief Kanabe has been a trusted partner, and I'm so very lucky that I've gotten the opportunity to work alongside him. Santa Monica believes in equitable opportunities, particularly small business and entrepreneurship. That's why we built a comprehensive program for sidewalk vending when the state adopted SB 946, decriminalizing vending in public spaces. We have over 100 permitted sidewalk vendors in Santa Monica. Yet despite our ongoing efforts to help people to vend safely, we have just as many sidewalk vendors who are conducting business without the proper permits, at times putting public health and safety at risk. We have taken a strong and unified approach on addressing any vending activity that compromises the health and safety of the public. Late last year, the city empowered a multi-department team consisting of fire, code enforcement, public works, the city attorney's office, and the police department to address the public safety, public health, and environmental impacts of unpermitted vending on and around the pier. Overall, their efforts have shown strong results, absolutely outstanding, as the pier and adjacent areas have remained clear of unpermitted vendors using combustible fuel sources. The city has received significant positive feedback from pier business stakeholders, merchants, and residents, and we thank you for reaching out. Homelessness and the impacts of homelessness is one of the biggest issues facing our nation and our city. Santa Monica continues to work with LA County partners and to invest in programs that offer services to those in need. In 2021, the 3 city-funded multidisciplinary outreach teams made more than 11,000 contacts with people experiencing homelessness and provided direct medical or psychiatric services to 808 participants. Last year, these teams placed 57 people into interim housing and 24 individuals into permanent housing. In December alone, the multidisciplinary teams made 990 contacts, providing direct medical or psychiatric care to 55 vulnerable individuals on our streets, in our parks, and on our beach. Thanks to new federal rental voucher resources, the city is launching 100 Homes, a new initiative to help 100 people experiencing homelessness in Santa Monica move into permanent housing. Eligible individuals currently staying in shelters in Santa Monica will have a pathway to a permanent home. As more people move into permanent housing, individuals who are currently living outside and have been identified as needing shelter can take those spots. We ask that all of us who live and work in Santa Monica participate in this effort to help our most vulnerable neighbors and make our city safe, equitable, and accessible for all. More information is available on our website, santamonica.gov. The pandemic has impacted our businesses, our households, and our local economy. As I mentioned earlier, I am excited to see that we are beginning to see signs of stabilization and recovery, and there's much that we've done to support the recovery that is taking hold. Despite the ongoing economic challenges, our team in economic development continues to focus on retaining existing businesses and attracting new ones to our city. We are seeing new businesses open in our community and existing businesses reinvest. When other communities were closing down their outdoor dining programs, we extended our program to support our entire community, workers, businesses, and residents during this challenging time. Over 170 outdoor permits and 15 kit of parts were provided to local businesses to make sure no one was held back. And now we're working to make the outdoor dining and retail program permanent. We funded 24 art projects through Art of Recovery, hiring over 100 artists during a pandemic and harnessing the power of the arts in the city's economic, community, and health recovery efforts by creating public art that strengthens and connects Santa Monica. Local artists transform some of the city's most iconic landmarks and public spaces for all to enjoy. We are keeping people housed and feeding people by making the emergency food pantry at Virginia Avenue Park permanent through a partnership with the Westside Food Bank and expanding our CalFresh public assistance. Over 200 families are fed every week. People can't go to work unless basic childcare needs are met. 195 Santa Monica children have received childcare subsidies. 76 childcare businesses have received grants. And a new website portal has been created to help families find local childcare services. We have a lot of work to address our housing crisis. Many of our friends and neighbors are priced out of living in our city. And for many that work in Santa Monica, living here is only a dream. There are many existing housing projects and programs the city is committed to driving forward, including the support our rent control department provides to residents. Last year alone, this team had approximately 11,000 constituent interactions by phone, email, and in person. The city invested $11.4 million to help fund the opening of 39 affordable housing units at Magnolia Villas for seniors earning low income. And through the city's Preserving Our Diversity program, we provided financial assistance to 150 low-income seniors who are long-term Santa Monica renters experiencing financial hardship. Maintaining our strong commitment to the production of affordable housing, the city also approved the development of mixed-use affordable housing on a city-owned parcel located at 1318 4th Street in downtown Santa Monica. Santa Monica has always been a place with a high quality of life, which is attributable to our exceptional service delivery. The city provides important services that our residents rely on every day. In 2021, we served over 1,400 youth at our parks and through our after-school programs. The Santa Monica Public Library reopened the main library and Pico branch. We expanded online and in-person programming with a focus on youth, and we are poised to reopen the Montana branch. Just last week, Council approved a fine fee program to bring more people back to our library system. Our Public Works team trimmed 7,465 trees and planted 415 new trees, removed 700 tons of trash from the beach, completed 32,120 beach restroom cleanings, and diverted 14,399 tons of recyclables and 11,393 tons of organic waste from landfills. We issued 2,719 permits, both through our online portal and front counter, and our building inspectors completed 17,554 inspections. Code enforcement addressed 863 complaints and performed 12,347 COVID-19 business checks. Our city clerk's team completed 615 passport applications after reestablishing passport services in July 2021 and processed 4,819 public records requests. I think you can understand why I'm so excited and impressed by our workforce. Investing in our infrastructure and public spaces remains a key element to serving the community and ensuring a safe, clean, and sustainable Santa Monica for years to come. With the leadership of our Public Works Department, the city made huge leaps towards completing major projects. Santa Monica completed the grand opening and unveiling of historic Belmar Park, Santa Monica's newest open space. Historic Belmar Park expands Santa Monica's park system and provides a safe space for recreation and historical reflection. With this being Black History Month, my hope is that everyone will find time to visit the park and reflect on our community's history. The Early Childhood Lab School opened its doors last summer to the first cohort of early learners, supporting more Santa Monica families in getting back to normal rhythms of life. The city continues improvements to replace the existing Santa Monica Pier parking deck, which will safely support large emergency vehicles and be a benefit for future events and activities. The City Yards Modernization project is nearing the completion of its first full phase of work. By the end of 2022, the project team anticipates a new operations center and a new fire training, and a new fire training facility will join the recently completed fleet maintenance building to ensure that our employees have a safe and efficient workspace, transforming how we work. Santa Monica has taken great pride in our commitment to protecting our natural environment. Santa Monica is advancing a bold agenda that will help us achieve water self-sufficiency, reduce CO2 emissions, and preserve and enhance our environment. The city took a big step toward a water self-reliant future when we broke ground on the expansion of the Arcadia water treatment plant and restoration of the Olympic well field last month. The Sustainable Water Infrastructure Project made significant progress building the advanced water treatment facility and stormwater harvest tank, and we anticipate completion this year in September 2022. These two projects are key water infrastructure improvements that help meet the city's goal of becoming water self-sufficient by 2023. By achieving this goal, Santa Monica will be able to withstand intermittent rain and prolonged periods of drought, which is a major milestone for our community and environment. An important step in continuing our commitment to environmental stewardship, reducing CO2 emissions, and achieving our zero waste goal by 2030 is the city's new mandatory recycling ordinance that aligns with the state's mandate. Santa Monica residents and businesses already have an impressive track record going above and beyond for the environment. And I know this new ordinance will be no different. Earlier this year, the city, in partnership with the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, launched the first zero emission zone in the nation. In this zone, smaller and cleaner technologies are relied upon to deliver goods, instead of the large diesel fuel trucks that we're used to seeing on our streets. In a collaboration with the Santa Monica Bay Foundation, state and federal partners, the Santa Monica Beach Restoration Pilot Project completed its 5th year in October. This experimental pilot restricts grooming in an approximately 3-acre area to bring back rare coastal habitat. With the merger of Big Blue Bus and the mobility team, the Santa Monica Department of Transportation emerged. The department's achievements include expanding the city's bike network with a new protected bike lane on Broadway and Ocean Avenue, resuming fare collection and reopening the transit store, serving 16,000 customers since February 2021, and providing real-time information on bus arrivals, overseeing infrastructure construction and installation of chargers for 20 battery electric buses, launching our 2nd shared mobility pilot program and the Open Main Street event series, completing Safe Routes to Schools projects at 4 schools in concert with our Public Works Department, beginning construction on more than $12.5 million of projects, including improvement on 20th Street and Michigan Avenue and 17th Street, obtaining grant funding for $8 million worth of projects that will improve our mobility. We continue to double down on customer service improvements throughout the pandemic to offer digital-first options, strong direct communication, and easier ways to find information. The city recently launched upgrades to our website to make information easier to find and easier to access across all devices. The improvements made to our website generated over 380,000 visits to our blog and newsroom alone, driving awareness to timely community information. We improve customer service for all non-emergency city services. Santa Monica 311, with services in English and Spanish, is an integrated program accessible via phone, email, and web. I use it, and I encourage everyone in the community to sign up and take advantage of this resource. And just last week, I'm pleased to share, if you haven't already seen the headlines, we reopened the front doors of City Hall, welcoming back in-person services at all of our city facilities. I just took you through a journey of our past year, but as we think about tonight's theme, envisioning the future, I want to share my thoughts on what I believe we have to look forward to. There are many signals our economy is stabilizing and our community is recovering all around us. With the glorious warm weather and the Super Bowl in LA this past weekend, we're seeing foot traffic returning to our commercial districts. Downtown, our pier and beachfront were bustling with activity. With spring right around the corner and Omicron infections on a downward trend, we hope to see the return of international travelers, and we have new businesses continuing to set their roots here. We are also stabilizing our operations at City Hall. Over the past several months, I've been hard at work building our leadership team, and we welcomed our new police chief, Ramon Bautista, in July. I appointed Susan Klein as our assistant city manager, Rick Valti to lead our public works department. Our new fire chief, Danny Alvarez, joined us at the end of this month, and our library director recruitment is underway. Now, we look forward to bringing services back and advancing new ideas to meet the needs of the community. This will be hard work as city services will recover more slowly than the economy, requiring us to prioritize our resources, make trade-offs, and work in new and innovative ways. I don't have a crystal ball to know exactly what the future holds, As your city manager, when I envision our future, the certainty I can provide is how we approach our work. Santa Monica has never been a city to shy away from a challenge or settle for second best. Our future hinges on our willingness to adapt to the ever-evolving factors beyond our control and apply new and innovative approaches to tackling our biggest challenges. I'm excited to share that this is already happening in our city. Let me share 5 key examples. Last year, our fire department responded to 3,984 low acuity medical calls for service. A standard paramedic fire engine and ambulance is designed to quickly assess, treat, and transport patients to hospital emergency rooms and then be ready for the next emergency. However, when a 911 call is less urgent and the solution is not necessarily the emergency room, our new emergency resource known as our Community Response Unit, or CRU, goes to work and has the latitude to spend more time on scene to help connect those in need with more appropriate resources. Trained to handle mental health emergencies, crisis communications, de-escalation, and substance abuse disorders, this 2-person ambulance unit has the unique distinction of being able to transport people experiencing a behavioral health crisis to a psychiatric urgent care center rather than an emergency room. The CRU team works in collaboration with other city departments, regional agencies, and nonprofits to help bridge the gap for housing and other support services. This service model is an example of our future and helps to keep paramedics, firefighters, and emergency room resources available for higher acuity care services. This program is making an impact, and it wouldn't be possible without the contributions of Fire Chief Wolfgang Knabe and his team at the Santa Monica Fire Department. Our city attorney's office partnered with the Los Angeles County and Exodus Recovery, Inc. to launch a post-arrest, pre-filing diversion program aimed at some of our most vulnerable populations. The Alternatives to Incarceration Program, or ATI, places a community navigator in the Santa Monica jail around the clock to provide immediate access to services for those experiencing homelessness, mental health, and substance abuse issues. The goal of this program is to provide access to services that will treat the underlying conditions that trigger criminal activity. By diverting participants to services instead of the criminal justice system, the city hopes to help individuals receive services and avoid the far-reaching consequences of criminal convictions. The program launched this winter, and in January, we celebrated the first 3 graduates from the program. Its success is a credit to the efforts led by Jenna Grigsby, our city's Chief Deputy City Attorney of our criminal division, our police officers, and our jail personnel. We are so fortunate to have a 5-star library system that serves our community. Due to the COVID-19 safer at home closures, our library facilities were closed to the public for almost 15 months. Our library system experienced one of the deepest cuts, resulting in a loss of 49% of their full-time staff, requiring us to make tough decisions. Still, the library team supported and engaged the public through curbside pickup service at 3 out of our 5 locations and access to library materials and databases via 24/7 online library. And through the unrelenting efforts of our interim library director, Erica Cayugan, and her team, our Ocean Park branch opened via a grant-funded self-serve program that relies on technology to provide valuable library services for individuals, families, and some of our most vulnerable users. In January, we welcomed about 330 people who self-checked out over 900 books, materials, and resources at this branch. Building on these successes, we are working towards reopening Montana branch for in-person service next month and applying the same technology to open the Fairview branch with the Open Plus self-service this summer. However, our library services are far from fully restored, a reminder of the work ahead of us to recover. Looking both within the organization and working with the community, we are committed to programs, practices that warmly embrace our diversity and address the past. Mayor Himmelrich just spoke about the new equity manager position the council approved and the good work of our equity inclusion officers. We also received wide media coverage on our Right to Return program. This program prioritizes historically displaced residents from the Belmar and Pico area on our affordable housing waitlist. We implemented a language access program to ensure our meetings and materials are available in multiple languages and accessible to all. And many of you have joined our city staff in celebrating all the diverse cultures of our community. We hosted celebrations for Hispanic Heritage Month, Asian and Pacific Islander Month, Pride Month, and Black History Month. Our future is one that comes together to find common ground, yet also celebrates and honors the different cultures that make up our community. We will continue to build upon all of these efforts, and it's our goal to look at all our work through a lens of equity and inclusion, and a Santa Monica that is welcoming to all. It's clear that government cannot fix all the issues in our community, especially now with our resource constraints. But I believe our future is bright if we come together as a community in partnership to tackle our greatest challenges, drawing on the strengths each of us brings to the table. An example of this is the We Are Santa Monica Fund. The We Are Santa Monica Fund and Advisory Board was established to meet critical community needs not funded through the general fund. We've been overwhelmed by the contributions made by generous individual and business donors. Thank you. With over $1.3 million raised to date, the We Are Santa Monica Fund provided grants to ambitious projects like the Small Business Recovery Grant Program, where we partnered with the Chamber and Local Initiative Support Corporation to deliver over $390,000 in recovery grants to 78 small local businesses. We also funded our emergency food pantry at Virginia Avenue Park, providing fresh groceries to over 200 families experiencing food insecurity each week throughout the pandemic. We need these kinds of partnerships to grow because there are so many unfunded needs in our city, and there is so much potential with the talent and resources in our community. We need you. Over the past several months of being in this community, it's become abundantly clear that we are transitioning into a phase of stability, recovery, and restoration. I have tremendous respect to the dedicated city staff who have demonstrated resilience and resolve in providing essential services throughout the pandemic. From cleaning bathrooms, sweeping streets, driving buses, responding to crimes, providing medical services, you have all truly sacrificed in the face of a pandemic. One more shout out to Debbie Lee, our Chief Communications Officer, and our communications team, Constance, Miranda, Aaron, and Marcus. Thank you for all you do and for helping to make the State of the City happen each and every year. I want to express my deep gratitude to this community for warmly welcoming me and my family to Santa Monica. Thank you for your patience in helping me understand the community's history, our triumph, and our issues. This has required an incredible investment in time, and I'm so very grateful. In closing, Mayor Pro Tem McCowan said it best, a sentiment that I know echoes the entire City Council. Santa Monica is an exceptional community. We have a lot of recovery work ahead of us to ensure that our resources are deployed wisely to address community needs. Every decision we make will be fraught with trade-offs, and I'm so looking forward to rolling my sleeves up and working with the council, the community, and our employees to be successful. Thank you.
David, thank you so very much for helping us understand where we are as a city today and the work that is being done to move us forward. Yes, there's a lot of work to be done, but there's so much good as well. And I really appreciate your words. I also want to acknowledge our mayor's courage and candor, difficult conversations to call out destructive behavior, but also her call to action that we work together to create change in these areas. David, I appreciate your kind words, and I'm sorry we didn't have more time together. I've worked with four other city managers, and I truly believe our city is in good hands with you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Pablos Holman. So Pablos is a hacker, inventor, venture capitalist, and technology futurist with a unique ability to distill complex technology into practical tools. Always building the future, his projects include cryptocurrency in the 1990s, AI, I wish I was with him then, AI for stock market trading, building spaceships at Blue Origin for Jeff Bezos, the world's smallest PC, and 3D printers at MakerBot. Pablos helped start the Intellectual Ventures Lab to support a wide range of invention projects, including a brain surgery tool, a machine to suppress hurricanes, a nuclear reactor powered by nuclear waste, and a machine that can shoot mosquitoes out of the sky with lasers, part of an impact invention effort to eradicate malaria with Bill Gates. A member of the most prolific team of inventors in the United States, Pablos has over 70 patents. A world-renowned expert in 3D printing, artificial intelligence, big data, robotics, automotive manufacturing, and crypto, Pablos has contributed to visions for the future of urban transportation, entertainment, education, energy, manufacturing, healthcare, food delivery, sensor networks, payment systems, and cloud computing. With a unique ability to articulate practical solutions and visions for the future of technology, Pablos is often invited to speak at conferences about innovation, invention, hacking, technology, and cybersecurity. He has spoken at Stanford, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum at Davos, the Microsoft CEO Summit, the Fortune CEO Summit, the CIA Google Zeitgeist, the Milken Global Conference, and to many of the top tech companies and conferences in the world. His TED Talks have over 30 million views. Currently, Pablos is a venture capitalist at Deep Future, backing mad scientists, rogue inventors, crazy hackers, and maverick entrepreneurs implementing science fiction. I think we all need a little bit of that right now, solving big problems and helping our species become better ancestors. It is my extreme pleasure to introduce you to Pablos. He is going to have a presentation right now, and that will be followed by an engaging conversation with our city manager shortly after his presentation. Pablos, I feel we're incredibly fortunate that you took some time to be with us tonight, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
I've never met anyone like it.
He could hack anybody's phone in a matter of minutes. Who is that guy? Who can do that?
Pablos is the most interesting man in the world. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. Inventor.
Wicked smart.
The master of cutting corners. If you had a dead body in your trunk, who would you call?
He would get arrested immediately in a lineup.
I stood in line to get his autograph.
You know, his mouth can barely keep up to his brain.
I don't actually know what Pablos does.
A hacker magician.
Man of the future. Future.
Hi, you guys. I'm Pablos. I'm just here to spend a little time with you talking about what possibilities we have for our future using new technologies to advance, the kinds of things that we're doing in our cities. So first, I just want you to take a look at this. This is the history of humans on planet Earth. Not very many of us. For about thousands of years, millions of years, billions of years, no humans, and then just 160,000 years ago, the first Homo sapiens. Then it's just thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. And really not until the last couple hundred years did we hit that hockey stick growth curve and go from millions to billions almost overnight. And it's that growth curve that defines everything we're experiencing in the world today. When I was born, there were half as many humans on Earth. It's probably true for most of you. 50 years before that, 100 years ago, half again, only 2 billion humans. So we've made lots of extra humans, and now we got to figure out how we're going to really take care of them. What happened along the way? Well, what happened is humans invented a lot of new technologies that allowed us to solve problems at a larger scale. So for example, how do you feed all these people? How do you give them jobs, give them homes, eradicate the diseases that are killing them off, right? These are difficult challenges for humans. And each time we have put our minds to the task. We have invented a new technology to help us solve that problem at a larger scale. And that's what allowed us to go from millions of humans to billions of humans almost overnight. But if there's one thing all these extra humans are good for, it's making more problems. So our job, literally our job, is to figure out how are we going to scale up our ability to solve problems on that curve. This is an old buddy of mine named Sammy. Sammy's kind of a famous computer hacker, lives down the street actually, who got himself into a little bit of trouble for writing a computer virus that he was using to meet girls on the internet, which is not the way to do it. Hopefully you guys have found better ways than that. Sammy got into a bit of trouble, wasn't allowed to use computers for a few years, but he's back now, and he's been playing with Google Maps. You guys use Google Maps, right? You know how Google colors the roads for traffic? Yeah, well, your phones are all just telling Google when you're stuck in traffic. Sammy figured out that he can just lie to Google, and all the roads he's about to drive on clear out. That'd be a pretty cool app to have, right? Guys like Sammy, they just have different brains than most people you know, right? If you get a new gadget and give it to your mom, she might ask you, well, what does this do? And you can explain, it's a phone, Mom, iPhone, says on the box, right? If you get a new gadget and give it to Sammy, well, the question is different. The question is, what can I make this do? And he's going to flip it over and take out all the screws and break it into a lot of little pieces, but then figure out what we can build from the rubble. And it's that discovery process that is fundamental to invention. It's fundamental to innovation. And without it, we never get anything new. Nobody's ever invented a new technology by reading the directions, right? We need these folks. We need their minds. We need their brains, because that's where our new superpowers come from. So this is a protocol diagram for a hacker. Now, this is the diagram for the encryption system that's in your phone that encrypts your passwords and credit card numbers and things. What hackers will do is attack every point in this protocol. What happens if I send a date from the future? What happens if I send 2 responses when the computer server is only expecting 1? What happens if I send a 0 when I'm supposed to send a 1? It might break, all right? And if it breaks, maybe I can get it to do something it's not supposed to do. That's what hackers are doing. This is Anopheles Stephensi. She's a female mosquito carrying malaria in sub-Saharan Africa. And this is the most dangerous animal on Earth. Not sharks, not snakes, not spiders. Actually, most of your neighbors are a pretty close second, so watch out for them. Malaria takes almost 1 million lives a year, even now. Half of them kids under 5 years old who never had a chance. This is the low-hanging fruit in global health right now. And this is a protocol diagram for malaria. It spends some of its life in a human, some of its life in a mosquito. It's super complicated. We don't understand that much about how it works. So what we're trying to do is invent new tools for the arsenal, new ways of going after this problem. We built a lab in Seattle called Intellectual Ventures, where we could take on problems like this. And we hired all kinds of scientists, and we hired all kinds of hackers. And then we aimed them at the job of understanding this protocol, attacking every point in this protocol to see if there's a better way to go attack malaria. This is the old-fashioned way of going after malaria. So you spray chemicals that kill everything, and then you hope the good stuff comes back, right? So this is how we got rid of malaria in Southern Europe and in the Southwest in the US. This is why we don't have this problem here. We taught our kids to sing, DDT is good for me. It's not really good for you, but that is the best technology we had at the time to go after this problem, right? Well, the technology wasn't good enough to solve the problem at the scale we have it in Southeast Asia and in Africa. So we have to invent. When you're an inventor, you always try to invent new, new technologies that involve lasers, because lasers are cool. So we thought, what if we could just find those mosquitoes and shoot them down with laser beams? I hired a hacker. He bought some electronics on eBay, wrote some code to do motion detection algorithms that could find these mosquitoes flying around, aim a laser at it, and then use the signal from that to sample their wing beat frequency, all right? So this is enough data that we can actually sort out mosquitoes from other bugs, and we can tell the species and the gender. And if it's a female, Anopheles defensi, then we shoot it down with a lethal laser. So here's what that looks like. She's not coming back. Here we vaporized her wing off. You can kill as many mosquitoes as you want. Not even PETA comes to save them. Here we overdid it a bit at the beginning because we didn't know how big of a laser to use, so we were vaporizing entire bugs, which is very satisfying work if you can get it. I don't know what all you guys are doing at work, but this is happening at the Intellectual Ventures Lab, which Nathan Myhrvold built to go after solving some of the biggest problems in the world. This is our machine shop. We'd hired one of every kind of scientist, bought one of every kind of tool, put them all on the same team, and then just started going after the biggest problems that we could find. So this is essentially my childhood. I grew up in the cold, in the dark, in the basement, in Alaska with that thing, which is kind of like the first home computer. And it was not very powerful. You couldn't even run a spreadsheet on it at the time. What you could do is crash it and reboot it. So that's what I did for most of my childhood, and I learned a lot about what computers can do and how they work at a very low level. And in some sense, I'm still doing that, because what it showed me was that, you know, it was possible to make this thing do stuff to help people. And I could imagine, well, someday it'll have more memory, and someday it'll be faster, and someday we'll actually be able to make it do cool stuff. And Revenge of the Nerds, I was right. Computers eventually took off, and now we have them in our pockets. Now we have these giant supercomputers, which we can use to do computational modeling. And this is very exciting. It allows us to collect data from all kinds of sensors. We have sensors all over and inventing new ones all the time. We have a massive internet, as you know, that can bring that data back to these giant supercomputers, where we can analyze the data and start to understand things that we really could never practically do before. So here's an example. This is a computational model on the spread of disease in Africa. Here we're modeling malaria. So we collect data on climate, rainfall, travel of humans, all the kinds of things that can affect the spread of malaria. And then it goes into this huge simulation where we're able to see what's going to happen with the spread of the disease for years into the future. So this is a model of Madagascar, which is a little island off the western coast of Africa. And you can see if you go to Madagascar, you should probably go to the middle. That's actually where the people are. In the dry season, malaria goes away almost completely, but in the rainy season, it covers almost the entire island. And so, you know, having a model like this allows us to test our interventions thousands of times in software before we ever do it in the real world. What happens if I spray DDT here or deploy some bed nets there? Well, this is an unprecedented capability for humans. We used to only get to run one experiment. Now we can run thousands. Well, imagine what that could do in a city like Santa Monica, right? What if we could create a model of the city that understands not just traffic, but, you know, where people live, where people work, the things that people care about, what the parking situation is, you know, all those things. And then what we can do, kind of like SimCity, is run thousands of experiments and we can, in the software on a computer, and we can learn what's possible. What are our possible futures? Where can we go from here? Right? And that's an extraordinary capability that humans have now that allows us to choose from our possible futures and choose the one that we want to go for. Right? Right now, humans make a lot of choices by choosing from fantasy futures that may not even be achievable, but we don't know that, we just go after them anyway. With computational models of our businesses, of our cities, of our nations, of our civilizations, we're able to now start looking into the future to understand what's possible, what are the side effects, what are the unintended consequences, and then aim ourselves and our attention at the really important job of figuring out, what are our values, what do we care about, and what future do we really want to build, and choose from those possibilities. So this stuff's kind of interesting. If you had a Coors Light full of depleted uranium, it would contain enough energy to power you and your entire family for the rest of your life. Well, it's radioactive and dangerous and messy, and we don't know what to do with the leftover waste, so we've been saving it for our grandkids in stockpiles. We invented a new type of nuclear reactor that is powered by nuclear waste. It's actually kind of a nuclear waste recycling machine that also makes more power than a normal nuclear reactor. What a lot of people don't realize is today's reactors were all designed before we were born, with pencils and slide rules. We can design our reactors on these giant supercomputers. We can understand what all the neutrons in the reactor core are going to do. We can create modern, safe reactors that are unprecedented. The other thing people don't realize is today's reactors are 0.7% efficient. Yeah, 99.3% of the energy is still in nuclear waste. So we figured out how to build a reactor that can get the rest of that energy out. Right? That's what's possible. This is a stockpile in Kentucky. 700,000 metric tons of depleted uranium sitting on the surface of the earth, saving it for our grandkids. Maybe they'll figure out how to make Legos out of it or something, right? This is mostly left over from making bombs. Unfortunately, not a lot of it was left over from making reactors, but that's all fuel for our reactors. In a TerraPower reactor, that waste can actually be used as the fuel. The TerraPower reactor can enrich and burn the fuel inside of it. And it can be a modern, safe reactor. We estimate with this one stockpile, there's enough energy stored there to power the entire planet, including growth, for about the next 1,000 years. We don't even need to mine uranium. We have this miraculous energy source, and we've oddly chosen not to use it. So see if you can find yourself on this chart. Maybe in the blue part or the red part. Doesn't really matter. If you're in the bottom 99% in America, you're still in the top 14% globally. That's not so bad, you guys. It's kind of like being a lottery winner. Won one lottery by getting to be human, which for a mammal is pretty good. The only thing coming after you is mosquitoes, and the reproductive process is fairly enjoyable. Won a second lottery by getting to be American. I don't have to tell you how awesome that is. I think a lot of people, though, are living like they got to win that third lottery, right? And what it means, I think, for me is, the world just over-invested in me. The world spent more money on me, more energy on me, more education on me. And I just think it means that, I need to do what I'm uniquely good for. And that a lot of us probably need to do that. If you have an iPhone in your pocket, the cost of that thing is equivalent to the global median income. Right? I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I got piles of these things, largely with the screws taken out, right? But I think you know, what it means is, look, you know, just because we made a product for rich people, the job isn't done, right? I mean, it's great. Have an iPhone, buy an iPhone, drive a Tesla. We need to, you know, part of our job is to waste a lot of money on all these cool new things so that we can figure out which ones are good, figure out how to make them better, figure out how to, you know, solve real problems with them and make them good for people, and then, you know, grow economies of scale and figure out how we can get it cheap enough that we can bring it to everyone in the world. And so, you know, I think that's really the job. And in Silicon Valley, we have this kind of religion called scratch an itch, which is basically budget market research. You know, find a problem you have, probably your friends have it too. What kind of problems do we really have? On your worst day, lost your job, girlfriend left you, iPhone battery is dead. These are not existential problems. I think it's important, you know, go figure out how to, you know, make an iPhone app to have weed delivered to your dorm room because you don't have any other problems. But then understand, you know, that was practice. You know, that was learn how to ship a product, learn to support customers and do all those things. But then take on a problem that you don't have. Take on a problem that 1 billion people have. Like, that's where the action is. Here's an example. This woman is packing $25,000 worth of vaccines into a crummy $2 styrofoam cooler. And she's gonna truck them out into the bush, start injecting kids. This is what we're doing on the front lines of vaccination. This is how we save millions of lives a year. Every year, hundreds of thousands of kids die of something they were vaccinated against, right? We did all the work to invent a vaccine, to test it out, to manufacture it, to ship it across the planet, get it out into rural Africa, inject a kid, and then it fails? You know, that's a unforgivable situation. The reason they fail is because they didn't stay cold. So we created a kind of super thermos. You can put vaccines in here, stick it in the sunshine, in the Sahara, come back a couple months later and your vaccines will still be cold, right? That's what's possible, right? This is literally the deployment scenario. You strap this R2-D2 looking thing to a camel, walk for days into rural Ethiopia, set up a clinic, which is basically a tree with a doctor under it, and this thing, and start injecting kids. That is the front lines. That is how vaccination works. And that's how we save millions of lives a year. But, you know, look, we had to try. We had to go there. We had to understand the problem. Once we did that, coming back to our fancy lab in Seattle with, you know, PhDs in biology and chemistry and physics. I mean, we can do these things. We can invent these things. But we had to go understand the problem. For all of human history, we've had this kind of innovation methodology called biological evolution. And it worked really well. That's how you actually got 2 eyes and opposable thumbs and the ability to appreciate music, all evolved capabilities. But along the way, you know, something changed. We used to just have to die to innovate. Through successive generations of sex and gamma rays, you get variations and mutations. And then through survival of the fittest, you kill off the ones that don't work so well. But once we became the apex predator, once we got to the top of the evolutionary food chain, you know, we killed off the very mechanism that got us here. There is no survival of the fittest anymore. Now we have to evolve with our brains. We have to learn to innovate using our minds. We have to create new possibilities. And we don't even know if it's going to work. At some point, you got to ask yourself, you know, do we need all these extra humans that we made? And look, I'm not going to tell you which ones are extra. Actually, hopefully you don't want that job either. In fact, whoever does want that job should probably be the first to go. I honestly think it's the most beautiful and amazing thing that humans have ever done. We chose the sanctity of human life. We chose to let everyone live. regardless of their fitness, right? Now, there's still some work to do at the edges to get those lives, but that's what we've been doing, right? And it's awesome, but it doesn't come without a cost. Along the way, maybe starting with the Industrial Revolution, we got very efficient, and we got to a point where we no longer had to spend all of our time just trying to survive and working. We actually could, create some free time. And we were, we didn't squander it. We were very industrious, and we invented the entertainment industry. Books, movies, music, elections, video games, all the things that we do to fill our free time, those are things that, that humans invented really in the last 50 to 100 years, right? Before that, people just had to work really hard, right? But I think at some point, maybe we hit peak entertainment. Maybe at some point, you've watched all of Netflix, maybe it's time to go outside and see if there's anything else you could do, right? I think this is important because we're at this inflection point where something important is about to happen, which is that a robot is about to come and do a lot of the things that you do and give you a bunch more free time. Actually, most of us probably won't be this lucky, but our kids will. And so we need to figure out, what does that mean for us? What does it mean for a human who has more free time than they know what to do with? This is one way of thinking about it. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, saying, well, what is it that humans need to feel fulfilled? And if you look at the bottom of this pyramid, start thinking about, where is technology helping, right? Like, what kind of needs do we have for, things just like breathing and food and warmth? Well, those are very basic and important needs, and we do use technology to help with those things. I mean, a heater is a technology. Go up a little higher. Employment, health. We have lots of technology for medicine and keeping you healthy and alive and fixing disease and problems and things, right? The bottom half of this pyramid I call quantity of life issues. And we're really good at those things. And I think in the tech industry in particular, we're going after all those problems. But when you go a little higher, it starts to change. Think about where technology is helping. Friends, family, there's no app for that, right? If you think about, what does it take to have self-esteem, creativity in your life? It's a lot harder to think about how technology is helping with these things, right? And that's because these are quality of life issues. And I think in Silicon Valley, we're a little disingenuous about this. We act like we're going to solve every problem in the world. We're not. We're only working on the bottom half of the pyramid, right? The whole top half, that requires humans, right? We don't even have any idea how we'd solve these problems. We don't even know what it would mean to solve them. Maslow's highest level of self-actualization, meaning in life, having a sense of community, problem solving, living up to your potential. These are things that every human strives for in some sense. Technology is not solving those problems for us. When you think about what it means to be happy, these are the happiest people I know. These are orphans in Ethiopia who never heard of overcrowding. This is their classroom. Look at this guy. You know anybody happier than him? I don't. Don't pity these kids. They've got something we don't have. He knows exactly who needs him in the morning, right? Robots can only do what we teach them how to do. And right now, we are terrible role models for robots. This is my daughter. She came from that orphanage in Ethiopia. And I immediately started to raise her with a lot of American problems. So, for example, we have a robot in our kitchen called Alexa. You guys know Alexa, right? And I noticed, she would take Alexa for granted. She really did. And she would sort of boss Alexa around. She would talk to Alexa the way I talk to her. Alexa, tell me a joke. Well, I said to her, look, there's going to be a lot more robots coming. You might want to be a little nicer to Alexa because she has a really long memory and you don't want her to get you back someday. So she actually liked this idea and she started to, talk to Alexa in a different way. She started to be more respectful. And Alexa, please tell me a joke, which I thought was sweet. What's happening is you and I and everybody else is just trying to figure out how to make things work for humans. It's really important because we didn't get this instruction manual, right? Instead, what we got is a lot of dystopian stories about how everything's going to go wrong. And I think this is really sad and depressing because the truth is, it's not a foregone conclusion. People have been telling these dystopian stories for all of human history, but the possibility is there that it could all go right, or it could at least go better, or it could not go as wrong as we're imagining or as our stories are telling us, right? But humans are powered by stories. And a lot of these stories, we've gotten really good at telling them. But the stories that sell are the scary ones, right? The stories that are popular are the ones that set off your biological machinery of being terrified. So it's really hard to get people to pay attention, even if you do create a positive, practical vision for the future, something achievable. And I think this is one of the really interesting things that, that this community has a hand in, right? A lot of the best storytelling in the world is being done by people who live right here in Santa Monica, right? And what we need for the future, what humans need, what society needs, is some positive, practical visions of what future we could be going for that's better. And I'm hoping, I don't know how to solve this. I'm not the storyteller, but I'm hoping that, I can find some brothers in arms. I'm hoping that I can find some folks who can help us to imagine a better future. Because if we can imagine it, maybe we can make it happen. Humans are really good at doing things we've seen done, and we're really good at doing things that those stories show us are possible. We're not really good at doing things that we've never seen done before, even if they're possible. And so those stories are important. Years ago, I got to work on this project called Blue Origin with Jeff Bezos. And the idea was to figure out, how do we create an enduring presence for humans in space? Which sounds crazy, actually. I mean, there aren't any humans in space most of the time, a few up on the space station. But, to figure out what it would take to have a future with trillions of humans thriving in space. And that sounds like a crazy idea, I know, and I'm not really here to try and defend it, but what I think about it is occasionally you get somebody who's free to imagine the future on a long time horizon. That's a project that's going to take hundreds at least, if not thousands of years to make real progress on, right? And Jeff, of all people I know, is able to think on those time horizons. I mean, most people, are just trying to figure out how to pay rent or put their kids through college. They have very acute short-term, relatively short-term problems they got, and you can't begrudge anybody for doing that. They got to do what they got to do. But occasionally we get humans who break free from that. In the case of Jeff, at least, he became wealthy enough that he could think on those long time horizons and not worry about some of the same things the rest of us do. And I learned a lot from that. What I learned is that a lot of times, if you ask yourself, for any given problem that you're worried about or whatever you're thinking about, is it the case that, the thing on the news tonight that has us all spun up is the biggest problem a week ago or a month ago or a year ago? The answer is usually no. And if you ask yourself, well, is this going to be the biggest problem week from now or a month from now or a year from now? The answer is probably no. It's just the thing that's got you spun up right now. And interestingly, with a lot of the problems we care about, if you look on longer time horizons, they have improved. You know, for any given problem you look at, and you ask yourself, well, was this worse 10 years ago? Probably. 100 years ago? Almost for sure. 1,000 years ago? No question. And if you ask yourself, well, does it have to be this bad 10 years from now? Probably not. 100 years from now? Definitely not. 1,000 years from now? Absolutely not. Those are superpowers that humans can use to overcome our biological machinery, overcome the things that hold us back mentally from imagining a possible future. And so I just wanted to share some of these ideas with you guys. Look, I care a lot about improving things for humans. And what I've seen in my lifetime is that these technologies, you know, every one of them is a tool. A hammer is a tool. I can use it to smash your head. I can use it to build your home. Artificial intelligence is no different. It's a tool that's new, and we're not very good at wielding it yet. But as humans learn to use these tools, we'll be able to use them to create a better future. And there's so many exciting things that we've figured out are possible, that are being developed right now, that can be the technologies of the future. And those technologies really can be the force multipliers that allow us to solve these problems at a larger scale than we've ever done before. And so obviously I'm excited about that. I'm looking for co-conspirators. I hope that you guys have learned something from listening to me. Feel free to take it or leave it. And then we're going to spend some time together discussing this and taking some questions, and hopefully we'll get to talk about the things that are on your mind and talk a little bit about the future for Santa Monica, because this is one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's the epicenter for creative people. It attracts people from all over the world. And this is a place where we can really imagine creating the tools we need for the future. And so I'm excited about that. And if you see me in Santa Monica, say hi, and I'd love to talk about it and hear what you're working on. Thank you.
Thank you to Mayor Himmelrich, City Manager David White, and our keynote speaker, Pablos Holman, for joining us tonight for an enlightening conversation on the future of our changing world. I think you have given us a lot to think about as we go forward with our lives. But before we adjourn, I would always like to mention the fact that our sponsors, who you can see on the slide next to me, without their support, tonight's program would not have been possible. I'd also like to thank the City of Santa Monica, the wonderful team at the Chamber of Commerce, our State of the City Event Committee, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me for what was a truly inspirational program. Good night.